Take you, for example. Who do you learn best from? If you're an adult male, then it's probably other adult males. Whatever your profession, then chances are you gravitate towards others from that profession. We tend to relate to those with whom we have something in common. Shared interests, or even shared afflictions, can bring us closer together. Evita Morin, Executive Director of Rise Recovery, knows the power of connections and wants to see teams build positive ones. Welcome to BexarCast. I'm Randy Langford, and this is BexarCast, a weekly interview with business, political, educational, and nonprofit leaders. We're examining the relationships between all four and how each one benefits from the success of the other three. Evita Morin is the Rise Recovery Chief Executive Officer. After years as a social worker on the front lines of substance abuse, homelessness, and education, she began leading in a range of roles across her civic and nonprofit career, from media relations and community stewardship to program development and operations. A San Antonio native, Evita grew up in Texas before attending undergraduate and graduate school at Columbia University in New York. Evita, thanks for joining me. I appreciate you giving me some time, and thanks for all you do in our community.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I know a little bit about Rise Recovery, but I'm far from an expert. Can you give me a quick overview of what your mission is, what you do?
Yes, so our mission is to address the harms of drug and alcohol for youth, young adults, and families, and to partner with our community in education and prevention. I don't know that everybody knows, but the science shows that people who start using drugs early are more likely to develop an addiction. And so that's not commonly understood, but alcohol and marijuana use are the two primary drugs that put kids on a path to becoming dependent on it. And those are the most common drugs that our kids use today.
Sure.
So it's because of that we want to be ahead of it. We want to acknowledge that there are kids already in school who just say no doesn't mean anything to them at this point because they're already experimenting. Right. And engage with those kids and try and put them on a different trajectory. So that's what we do.
Okay. So it's working with a lot of kids, a lot of teens, a lot of young people.
Yes, a ton of youth. Again, we're the only sort of youth serving direct care provider in San Antonio. And so our focus is on minors and young adults and people who are really too young to understand a lot of times that recovery is even a concept. And so trying to educate them on that is very important to us.
And it's that dovetails nicely with what BexarFest is all about. We have a couple of goals. We want students and teenagers to explore career options, but we also want them to learn more about how the nonprofit world works. Mm-hmm. That's why we designed the festival the way we did, that the students are paired with nonprofits. How does getting students involved in projects like that dovetail with your mission as a means of intervention, as a means of self-reliance, as a means of finding an alternative to drug use?
Absolutely. So a little bit about how we work, and I think it dovetails perfectly, is that we provide peer-to-peer recovery support in a community-based setting. And all of our youth staff are in recovery from addiction from their youth themselves. So they're now living purposeful and healthy lives. And our program provides, it's a safe place to provide alternatives to the harms of drugs and alcohol and alternatives to the social groups that kids were hanging out with when they were using drugs and alcohol.
Right.
So it's also about having fun. And because what's the point of sobriety if it's not joyful, if your life isn't joyful? So projects like this dovetail perfectly with our work. Like Mr. Mark Soapy's class, we believe the best learning for teens is experiential and has to have meaning, a point, and get in the bones and the soul of a kid to be worth it. It has to involve teamwork, lifting each other up, and it has to develop leadership skills. So I found that, like Rise Recovery, BexarFest does all of that.
Right. And that's really our objective. It's how we came to be in the first place.
It makes perfect sense.
This was your first year of being in BexarFest. So when you found out you were going to be partnering with a high school production team to make a video about Rise Recovery, what were your expectations?
We were excited to be chosen, and our expectations, because we work in the youth field and because we work in a peer-to-peer field, was that youth know what they want and know what they're doing. We are used to youth leading, and we were ready to let them guide us into their world. So we were really excited about that, because that is a rare opportunity, and we already felt like we were different from the standard mold, and
Right.
BexarFest is in the same kind of alternative path. So we were excited about working with
Did the
Reagan.
kids exceed your expectations?
Oh my gosh, above and beyond. They were incredible, and the equipment they knew how to use, and the questions that they asked, and it was a remarkable experience.
Well, it was interesting that they chose to work with one of your peer counselors.
Yes.
That was an interesting approach they took to telling your story. And given that a lot of the people you serve are young people, teenagers, was it of any value that these are kids reaching out to kids?
Totally. It's because the way that young brains are developed and developing, they need to identify with each other to develop their own identity. And so we already knew that they are most influenced by the people they relate to. And, our staff are trained to use their stories to find connection and compassion. So our program makes recovery leaders out of teens who have longer term sobriety, and they help bring recovery to others. I think the cool thing about the story they chose, Nigel's, was that it wasn't just about this entity. It was about sharing his story, and in some ways, maybe their own story. And it became a message that was just not for the general public, but for their very own peers.
He certainly made it relatable.
Yes, absolutely.
I went into this thinking I got it under control. I'm certainly able to handle this, and realized that he's wasn't as in control as he thought he was.
Absolutely. That's the common story. And so it's really being able to relate, not just to, I think in common sort of the DARE education that I grew up with, that they show all kinds of things that are foreign to me, and all kinds of pictures of people that are foreign to me that I don't relate to. And you put someone who can talk about their experience in high school struggling, their sadness, their anxieties, their stressors, and the way that they thought they were solving it. And it becomes suddenly very relatable. And a lot of we had a staff person who graduated from Reagan who had drug and alcohol issues at some point. So we were familiar with Reagan, that struggle within Reagan. And we really appreciated the opportunity to share, to be able to let them see that there's a recovery story out of that too.
And that's interesting that I've had teachers tell me when they first decide we're going to be part of the festival, we're going to be in BexarFest, that the students get excited. This will be fun. It's something out of the ordinary. We get to go off campus. We get to play with cameras and videos. But then when they meet the nonprofit, when they meet the people that they're going to be telling the story about, it suddenly gets very real. And they step up and display a level of maturity that people aren't expecting. That this is serious business, and we are going to accept that challenge, and we're going to tell it, work in a serious way. Did you see that?
I did. In fact, I saw it both in our experience and then in watching at BexarFest, watching all of the other videos. It was like not everyone can experience, a mission trip or international travel to third world countries, but what they can do is the kind of work that you all are doing, where they expose them to high need, vulnerable populations, and a mission that's helping address that. And it is a very humbling experience that is life-changing, and it sticks with teens, and I think helps grow and develop them. We saw that happening with our...
And that's one of the real rewards I get out of this, is I get to see it every year. That when students come into the premiere and they see 40 videos, they know what they put into theirs, but then they find out the other agencies in San Antonio and the missions that they serve. Kids fire up, they light up. What do you mean there are kids in San Antonio who don't have enough to eat? That can't be. That's not right. I'm not going to let that happen. And they accept that challenge, and it's heartening to see that that generation is more than willing. You tell me the problem, and you give me a path to solve it, and watch me go. Let me add it.
Exactly. And it doesn't require some mass amount of money or, again, international travel. You can go in your own backyard and find critical need and ways that people can help resolve it. And that's what your kids were doing.
Right. It's fun at the festival. This is the first time a lot of these kids interact with adults as adults. In the past, it's always been parent, child, student, teacher.
Yeah, that dynamic.
Yeah, when they're dealing with you, it's client, vendor.
Yeah, that's an excellent
we have to bring
point.
our A game. We have to act like grown-ups. We have to look adults in the eye and tell them what we're planning and get their feedback. Did you see your team change over the course of the project? Did you see them grow up a
Yes.
little bit?
Oh my goodness. I mean, one, they didn't, I think there are a lot of common misperceptions about addiction. And so they didn't understand really some of that, that it's a disease, that it's not a moral failing, that it's something that can happen in youth, that recovery is a concept. I could see their minds expanding through this process. And then in asking some really hard questions, I think that they did not withhold anything in their curiosity, which I loved.
Right. And it's interesting. It's again heartening to see the kids kind of go through that change, that they take a step from I'm just the guy behind the camera to no, I have valuable opinions and I get to express them and people are going to respect me. And
Yes.
it's fun to see them evolve that way. But then there's the technology the kids bring to the festival. They get to experience what you're doing and they get to learn while they're doing that. But at the end of the day, you walk away with a free video
Oh,
that
yes.
you can use as a marketing tool for your organization. What's the value of that to you?
Well, the end product was more than we could have asked for. And we already have utilized our marketing through those pieces, through social media, through the pictures and the video they created on our website. On the video was on our homepage. And in a Sunday Express News, we even printed one of those images and made a link to that video in a half-page advertorial. So it was, I mean, to say it was used
Nice.
is an understatement. It was very valuable.
Excellent. That's great. I'm glad to hear that it's of value to you as well as to the kids, because we focus a lot on the students. That's how the festival came to be, was we wanted to give students this opportunity to explore media careers, and doing that by working with nonprofits. And I'm glad to hear that it is of value to you as well. It's not just, all right, we'll give them a couple hours and
Oh,
it's
no,
at
it
least
was,
painless.
we pay, and there were times where afterward, we're like, how do we connect with them again as a vendor? Truly. And, we pay, high dollar for work that I would say is equitable, if not slightly less, because you had such a passionate team. And so this was premier work for us.
Well, good. I'm glad it was of value to you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to let you go. I'm not going to keep you to my cat has shown up.
Oh yeah. Hi, kitten.
So I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much for your time and for your willingness to give these kids this opportunity. It's of great value to them, and I'm very proud of you guys for helping them out.
No, the blessing was ours. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Take care.
Take care.